And the more you sow, the more you grow. You have dispersed abroad. His righteousness remains forever. Okay, now it's taking form in the form of fruit bearing. Okay, and that's what you want. You want to get it from the bud to the blossom to the fruit. Okay, from the bud to the blossom to the fruit. Okay, all these things all these things God put within nature to teach us certain process and protocol. Okay, when you plant a seed, hey, it goes through the protocol of its growth. Okay, from a seedling into to a bud or to sprouts, then it goes into a full stalk into the fruit. Okay, and it's the same thing with an apple tree. Okay, from the bud to the blossom. Okay, it buds and it blossoms out. It's beautiful. Of course, then it goes from there into the next stage. Okay, to develop itself into the fruit. Okay, and as it develops itself into the fruit, okay, it begins to take on. A seed develops within it, which carries on a tradition of its parent. And that's what we're doing. We're carrying on the tradition of our Father within us because Christ is being formed within you. Okay, and when Christ is being formed within you, that's the hope of glory. Okay, you're carrying a spiritual tradition, okay, into the third covenant. Okay, whereas you're going to be propagating as the apple of the tree. Okay, the apple contains his parent. Okay, it contains his tradition, okay, to carry on to the next generation, and that's what we're doing. So he has dispersed abroad; he has given to the poor. His righteousness remains forever. Okay, he that ministers seed to the sower, okay, as concerning the stewardship. Okay, ministering seed to the sower, both minister bread for your food, okay, as one that stands at the altar, okay, and multiply your seed sown. Okay, that's the benefit of it. Okay, and increase the fruits of your righteousness. So highlight the word fruits there, and highlight the word enrich in verse 11. Being enriched, okay, and everything. So we highlight the word thing there and put the word tools over the word thing, because we're not talking about abstracts. We're talking about, or abstracts or concepts. We're talking about tools. Okay. All right. So being enriched in everything. Okay, what happens? Then you're bountiful to all bountifulness. This is your temperament. Okay, which increases through us, the government, thanksgiving to God. This is the completion of your cycle. Okay, for the administration of the service not only supplies the want of the saints, but is abundant also in many thanksgivings to God. And again, that's the word thanksgivings again. That's what we do in Sunday morning. Okay, as we sing in the Spirit. Okay, okay, so we prophesy by the Spirit. Okay, we sing in the Spirit. Okay, we are abundant also in many thanksgivings unto God. Okay, now whilst the experiment, or the proof of this, while the experiment of this ministration, whilst by the experiment of this ministration, they glorify God for your professed subjection unto the gospel of Christ. Okay, now this right here is another point of measurement. Okay, this is a point of measurement. The Apostle Paul was able to measure, okay, or to gauge. Okay, he was able to gauge your growth just as much as, okay, as a mechanic, okay, is able to gauge the performance of your engine. Okay, but he has the tools there, okay, that are necessary in order to say measure, okay, to measure you could say the mechanics or the mechanics of your engine, as he attaches them to this vessel. Now the Apostle Paul is also able to gauge your spiritual growth, okay, whether it be little children, young men, or fathers. Okay, that's in verse and that's 12 and 13 there. Okay, he is able to gauge this. Okay, it's the same thing in our position. We're also able to gauge these things. Okay, but like any mechanic, master mechanic, okay, it takes patience. Okay, it takes skill and patience. Okay, as he gauges these things. Okay, I'll watch them. Okay, the modern engine, okay, takes more of an education. You actually have to have now a specialist. Okay, before you could just be a grease monkey. A grease monkey, it's like a tinker. You could tinker on a car, like a Model A, Model T, okay, or something. Or some of those cars in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Okay, you go out there and you can tinker around with it. And you could order parts. You could even go to a junkyard to get parts. Okay, but today's engines, okay, are on a different scale. Okay, they have been engineered, okay, where the technicians have to be specialists. You have to go to school now. Okay, to receive a certificate of that you have met the criteria that you're able to perform on this task right here. Okay, and now they have all kinds of tools that implement these things. You have to know how to use these tools, to attach them and to measure and to measure them. And they even have tools to be able to tell what's wrong with your car. Okay, those things. Okay, that requires a skill. Okay, this is the same kind of skill level God wants to be reintroduced to the church. He wants to reintroduce the skill level to the apostles, particularly. Okay, so that they're able now to gauge. Okay, not criticize, but to gauge. Anybody can criticize. Everybody's a critic. Okay, you go to a movie and ask anybody that comes out of a theater, what do you think about the movie? Well, they'll give you their opinion, right? They're just a critic, whether positive or negative. Okay, but it would take a professional, okay, in order to view these things and to give give an assessment. Okay, so the apostles' calling is not for the purpose of the critical eye, okay, but rather through the purpose of giving direction, okay, inspiring, giving direction, giving hope, okay, encouragement. So whilst by the experiment of this ministration they glorify God. Now the word glorify has to do with a process. Okay, it begins at a seed and it progresses to a fruit. That's a process. Okay, for your professed subjection, okay, under the gospel of Christ, okay, and for your liberal distribution unto them and to all men. Okay, so this is a result of a due process, okay, of long suffering, mercy, patience, faith, charity. Okay, well, let's go on here. And by their prayers, you might want to highlight the word prayer there. There's another good word. Okay, by their prayer. Now, the Apostle Paul knew they were praying, okay, because the Apostle Paul also taught pray without ceasing. Okay, he also put great emphasis and value in prayer, because this form of this engagement, by the way, that your joy is going to be full. Okay? And not only is your joy going to be full, but it's also going to free your soul from bitterness and hostility, even towards somebody else, your enemies. Okay, because your enemies want to draw you into conflict by the principle, and they want you to justify yourself. Okay, by that principle. But you're free to Christ. Okay, as you're continually working with with these tokens, prayer, preaching, prophecy. You're working with the grace of God. It frees you from trying to stand to justify yourself by the principle, because that's what they want you to do. They want you to draw you into that net, to principle you, and of course, and every time you're drawn to the net in order to justify yourself in the light of their principle, you know what happens? You never measure their standard, and they never forgive you. Never. Okay, it always comes to the cycle of attack. Okay, because that's that kingdom. That's that kingdom. See. So, in order to spare you the time, okay, and the discouragement, okay, of that, Paul just takes the shortcut. Pray. Pray without ceasing. Free your soul, okay, from the bondage of the principle. Okay, free your soul from their evil doings, their aspirations, from the wrongdoings. Okay, and also free yourself to Christ. Okay, so by their prayer for us, which long after you, by their prayer for you, which long after you, for the exceeding grace of God in you. See, he's able to measure that token. The exceeding grace of God, exceeding grace. Okay, it's progressing. It's fruit bearing. Okay, you can see this in the activity of the assembly. Okay, you can see this in the attendance of the general assembly. The exceeding grace of God in you. Thanks be unto God for his unspeakable gift. Okay, as God continues to issue forth these tokens for your growth. So you're zealous, desirous of these spiritual gifts. Okay, and you're coveting after spiritual things. That's good. That's a healthy church. Okay, but if you're not abounding in knowledge, if you're not abounding in wisdom, if you're not abounding in faith and charity, then there's a discrepancy that exists there. Okay, so you can walk into any house of Bel, and you can immediately on the scales on the scale of this, okay, on a scale of truth, you're able to measure immediately. There is something wrong here. Okay, there's a different spirit. I can remember when Maria and I, okay, went to the community gospel, community church, okay, in California. When we were going there, after the service, we were walking home, and we would discuss what is wrong. Is there something that's wrong here? But we just could never put our finger on it. Okay, what it was. Well, I know what it is now. Okay, but we were just young Christians here. We were only in the faith about a couple years. Okay, and we would discuss these things. Okay, not in a sense of criticism, okay, because we couldn't put our finger on anything. But all we knew is that there was something that was wrong, absent. Okay, and that had to do with the not only the performance of the saints, okay, but also in the spirit in which it was delivered. We could tell there was a different spirit there. Okay, and then we went to community chapel. That was community chapel. And then we went to an Assembly of God church called People's Church. Okay, and when we were going there, we felt that same spirit. Okay, that there was something that was wrong there. But the people were nice. The pastor was a missionary, and he was a really nice guy. Okay, but it was a spirit that was presiding over that system. Okay, it was the spirit of Baal. Okay, and we could feel there was something wrong. Okay, then we went to Bible school. When I went to Bible school, okay, we knew that there's something wrong there. And says it has to. We kept following that spirit, and then the Lord gave me a dream, which was when we lived in California. I went to Bible school in Oklahoma, but in California, okay, when we were praying, okay, there was as I was praying, there was a dream that was given to me, okay, and regarding a certain spirit, but I didn't see it at first. But then we went to Bible school. It was starting to manifest itself. It was starting to become very clear. And I says, and I knew it because the emphasis of the Bible school, which is Kenneth Hagin's Bible school, the emphasis, of course, has to do with covetousness. And that it says there is something really wrong here. Okay, in that, and the Lord gave me, a dream, and He delivered us from that. Okay? Even though I graduated from the school, but He delivered us from that spirit. Okay, in that, and then the Lord had to re-educate me, and that's when the first things the Lord ever taught me was grace. When the Lord enlightened me to that grace after a dream, He enlightened me to grace. Okay, He freed my soul into every other element. I says, now I can see what happens. Okay, as an example of that, okay, that's one example of that is B equals B, but the other one's over here, behind Casey. Okay, of how each one of these elements played out, and it was 1972, 1973 that the Lord started giving me these things. In that, and this right here is around 1982 when we finally came to that. That's 1982. Okay, and the Lord began it. That's the first thing God taught me was grace. From grace, He taught me faith. From faith, He taught me righteousness. And He taught me the value of the seal. Then He taught me the value of sanctification and holiness, righteousness and justification, regeneration, renewing the mind, all the 12 elements. And then all of a sudden it came together. I saw all these stones laying around. And I says, how does this come together? And all of a sudden, that's the altar. And it all came together. Right there. The altar of Christ. And that was around the 1980s. And then it went from the 80s to the priesthood and 90s. And the stewardship, everything just started coming right together there.
Now the Lord was always worked according to an altar. And now when faith was restored, also the altar had to be restored first.
That's right. The altar had to be restored, yeah. In the proper place.
Mm-hmm.